Swimming in the Sacred, Wisdom from the Psychedelic Underground is based on in-depth interviews with women who've been working at least 20 years secretly, underground, against the law. And they've been very, very private, obviously, for all these years. Many of them have been working 30, 40 years underground. And they have all this experience and wisdom from this depth work that they've been doing.
And what is the specific work they're doing?
They've been guiding journeys using all the possible psychedelic medicines. Sometimes in groups, very small groups, maybe 4 to 6 people, but often one-on-one. They go with the person doing the journey. They're not taking any medicines, but they're there as support for the person and to guide them through the experience.
And I know that a lot has happened in recent years as far as research and even legalization of some psychedelics. Can you just give us a quick overview of what's happening there?
Right. Well, for about the past 25 years, maybe, there's been research studying psychedelics. It's become possible once again after the great drought since ex-President Nixon. But the research studies are done in medical settings, and it's really all about collecting data and finding the most cost-effective way to use the medicines. So this is a very different approach than what the women are doing. And the research teams are very respectful. They make a very comfortable environment with kind of having a spiritual orientation of some sort. But basically they're collecting data, and they're looking for the most effective way to use these medicines. And the data has been incredible as a result. It turns out that the entheogens are very, very therapeutic.
And you say in the book that there's a huge gap between the women elders you interviewed and what the researchers are doing in the university settings.
Here's the best way I can put it. This comes from the eldest of the elders. So she's now in her late 80s. She's been working 50 years. She knows a lot. She knows a lot that the researchers don't know. And what she said is, even if these medicines become legal, I will continue to work underground because that's where the sacred container can be. So it's a whole different approach to the medicines. And another difference is that these women have, through their own work with these different medicines, they've developed their own relationship with especially the plant medicines, but they know the medicines much longer and better than the scientists do. And they have these personal relationships where they also get sometimes called downloads of information from spirits or plant teachers. So they have another source of information that's guiding them. The truth is that people who are really working with these medicines work with them in an ongoing way throughout their lives. I mean, Albert Hofmann, the chemist who synthesized LSD, he did a journey when he was 98 years old. He died when he was 104. So you get a whole different perspective of these medicines accompany people throughout their lives, throughout different stages of their lives. That's also very different from the research, which happens with basically in a 3-month period.
And why do you feel it's so important for these women's voices to be heard right now?
You know, the funniest thing I can say about women's voices is there's a collection of articles that came out in a book in honor of Stan Grof, who is, of course, very important in the whole psychedelic community. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, there were 22 authors. 3 were women. 1 was the second author, 1 was dead, and 1 was the first author. So it's time for the women to have more to say in general. But the underground women elders have a whole different perspective on how these medicines are used, and that needs to be heard.
How have your own experiences with psychedelics informed this work?
Well, I couldn't have done this book without my own experiences, and that really is one of the rules, is that the women, they don't train to do this work. They worked on themselves using the medicines, and they found the medicines so helpful that they then wanted to work with others. So there's no way I could have understood what they told me in the interviews if I didn't have my own experiences. But I hadn't had I had experiences from the 60s. And then, of course, I had ayahuasca ceremony experiences as as detailed in my other psychedelic book, Listening to Ayahuasca. But I hadn't done the protocol that is now used in research with the eye shades and the earphones and lying under a blanket. And so when I realized, oh, I'm writing about something I haven't done, of course I had to do it. And so I had that kind of session with one of the elders. And it's wonderful. My other experiences back in the 60s, I was in Big Sur, I was up on a ridge, it was gorgeous. You could look down at the Pacific Ocean and the clouds. I mean, it was nature and it was a spiritual experience, but not the same as with a guide. Yeah. It's different.
Yeah. What do you most hope that readers will take away from your book?
Oh, that there's much more to these medicines than is being published in the research journals. And of course, I've read all that. And it's an overwhelming amount that's coming out now. I haven't read absolutely everything because it's too much. But there's a whole different perspective on how to use these medicines than is being explored in the research. And I don't want that to be lost.